then graduated a little bit to direct debits, £2 a month, £5 a month, whatever it was. And I remember that was Sponsor a Child with ActionAid, so that was probably 40 years ago. Which is quite interesting because ActionAid tried to go with a Sponsor a Child because they wanted to, that wasn't only what they were doing, and it was in principle divisive in the villages if a child was sponsored, what about the one that wasn't. But it was just such a fantastic money scam, and people emotionally committed to it. They had to basically make sure when the money came in, it went to all the village. But as a device, it was great. And funny enough, the other one I was giving to at that stage was Save the Tiger, i.e. WWF, who you will notice in Northern, coming right there. That mess of a car park is going to be a fantastic WWF building. And they still have a symbol of the panda, and they'd love to get rid of the panda. But the point is that and talk about conservation and saving the world in order to save the forests and the marines and all the whole life cycle. But unfortunately, we all give to large, fluffy, charismatic animals, and that's the sort of language they use. That's the reality. So that's why I started, and I suspect that rings bells with a number of you. And then I floated my business on the stock exchange in '89, and one of the best pre-planned things I did was I set up a trust at that stage and put, I think it was 10 or 15% of my shares into that trust. And at that point, it didn't really mean very much, because this was a company that didn't give out large dividends. It was all about the speed of growth. We were growing like crazy, but therefore it was a stock to like buy and sell, not keep for widows and orphans for dividends. However, it was a great opportunity, as it were, to practice, because having set up a trust, you've got to understand what the Charity Commission does, you've got to understand how the responsibility of trustees, you're going to have to handle applications whether you like it or not, you're awarding grants, and you need to set some sort of policy. So that was quite useful. And then the thing became real when I sold the business in 2001, and all those shares crystallised into hard cash, and it was sold at a very good price. So the charity, I nearly said business, but actually in a way you should treat it as a business, is making grants in arts, conservation, homeless, elderly. 20% goes internationally, but it's very much targeted on a self-help basis. So it would go to an ActionAid, it wouldn't go to Oxfam. It's actually our policy, it doesn't matter if you don't agree with it. And 20% is local, which in essence is Surrey. Why do I give? Well, actually to make a difference. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money. If you know you're giving somebody a hot meal at Christmas, or you're putting a load of goodies in a little shoebox that goes up to Romania, knowing what the conditions are for people in Romania, it actually makes you feel really good, because you have made that difference. Is it visiting lonely elderly people? Is it, I remember one of the first things that hooked me was a wood-burning stove. They were something like £10. Wood-burning stove out in Africa, burns wood instead of on an open fire at a quarter of the speed. So all this cutting down, four times less wood is cut down. The women going to get the wood don't spend 3 hours getting there, etc., etc. They don't have to give up on that amount of time. So suddenly the logic of just a small amount. And I suppose also, I guess a lot of you here is just the feeling that maybe one should give back because we're more fortunate than many. Another thing I do though is I give advice and time and not just money. Obviously the trust is mainly that, but some charities I get really close to and I'm involved. And actually the other thing is it's selfish, because I feel better, I feel a hell of a lot better. There's a lot of, in fact, we have the question here, what gift have I received that gave me most pleasure? Well, I'm going to tell you about a gift I gave that gives me colossal pleasure. Actually more than the gift I can think of, which is quite interesting, that I've received. I don't think it's as weird as it sounds, actually. So I'll give you a live example and then I'll shut up. I recently found myself in Kenya looking at a microfinance scheme, in fact with an Anglican church scheme. And microfinance, without getting into it, so there's thousands of them, lots of different ways of running them, are basically community-based savings and loan schemes. And if they're run properly, it is amazing actually how effective they are. They are much more effective most of our banks, I'm going to say quickly. But at the same time, with almost no bad debt ratios. It's just amazing, but obviously on a very small scale. So while I was there, I called on WWF and ActionAid because our trust has been giving money to them for years. And again, I found microfinance, because why is WWF in microfinance, for goodness sake? Well, it's in microfinance because it wants to stop people cutting down the forests. And if it wants to stop them cutting down the forests, it better actually find some form of livelihood for them. So I've been involved in a Jatropha project, which is bushes that actually, that the nuts produce an oil that burns a quarter more slowly, 4 times more slowly than kerosene, which just has a sort of fundamental effect on the economics and is a way of new livelihood for them. And then in the case of ActionAid, if they're trying to get people out of poverty, well, where was I? Obviously I was in slums, particularly outside of Mombasa, and rural areas, remote rural areas. And I was asking lots and lots of questions because I have a real interest in small and medium-sized enterprises, and in effect, the fact that these are one-person businesses is no different from a 35-person business. The issues are the same. And then I found myself revisiting, and it's now my fourth year last year, and all the time drilling down, so calling on the same people. What worked, what didn't work, and so on. And last year, this is the gift I was talking about, is that the Trust built a library, and a library kind of community centre last year, and because I started to realise when I was sitting in these slum areas, there's no electricity very often, or it just is cut off. There is no peace and quiet if the kids want to actually do some studying. There's often a lot of violence in the households and so on. So suddenly what we just think is a library, and are only now here deciding to save our libraries when they've almost gone. That for them absolutely central. And then on a sort of shared matched funding basis, we're putting in PCs into the library, and also books, which is a huge shortage of. And then I found myself giving advice. So what I'm intending to do now is I'm putting questionnaires out in advance. These are women's groups, so women's community groups, and then running business clinics for them. So last August there were 43 women there, and women are the centre of the solution of education and getting people out. It's more effective with women. It hurts me to say that as a man, but that is the truth. And now they're looking at extending it to youth groups because they've got huge unemployment. They don't want disenchanted youth around. We don't. And so I've seen the changes year by year, and in some cases there's a women's milling cooperative of about 10 women. And bear in mind, they're bringing out their kids, they're having to do a whole load of things, and what we would think would be appalling circumstances. And I gave them advice on if they packaged it rather than having loose maize, they probably could get a higher price. And now they're asking about branding the packaging and so on. But literally 60% of their sales are now packaged up, and yes, they can charge more money. Or it might be a 24-year-old who I know is going to be a great entrepreneur who last year he had one motorbike and was doing deliveries in a very, very clever way. Well, now he's got 2 motorbikes. It's small, but you're just seeing those changes. It's hugely satisfying. And actually, I'm in the process of buying 10% of a community bank out there for, believe it or not, less than £1,000. But that's probably another story, because that story will unfold. But it is hugely satisfying. And it doesn't have to be massive amounts. I think one has to ask, make the money work hard and ask a lot of questions to make sure it does. So when you have the 4 players this evening, hopefully we'll do that. But it is fun, it's not just giving. So my message is, come on in, the water's lovely. Thank you.